So I couldn't believe my eyes when I read these long tweets from the creator of Bleach, Tite Kubo. They were translated recently, and honestly, they shocked the shit out of me because I always have my speculations, my ideas, what's been going on with Bleach the past, 5 or 6 years as it was being created and stuff like that. But getting this really sad story, it's sad, it's inspiring, it's insane. I could not believe it. And also finding out that at the very least, the final chapter of Bleach was made the way Tite Kubo, creator of Bleach, wanted to is insane. But seriously though, like, buckle up because this is actually quite sad to find out about the creator of Bleach and exactly what was going on with him since pretty much the 10-year mark of Bleach. Kubo Tite Bleach Twitter. Kubo's latest Twitter post made this person cry. His story really touched him and he wanted to share it with Bleach fans who can't read Japanese. Note, Kubo quit Twitter once in the past due to certain difficulties but returned a few weeks ago. In case you don't remember, I told you guys about the whole porn scandal where somebody was imitating his appearance and pretending to be like, this big porn star or whatever, or he was a big porn star, and ultimately Kubo was ran off Twitter. That's what they're referring to, but let's go. Bleach ended 3 months ago. The feeling that there was still something he needed to do was constantly on his mind. That's why firstly, he liked to use Twitter as a platform to say thank you to his readers. He managed to write Bleach for 15 years. He said he managed to write Bleach's final chapter the way he had decided since chapter 1. So pretty much the whole, children and happy ending and stuff like that, Kubo had that in mind. Now, I don't know if he necessarily had that, Rukia was going to end up with this person and, Ichigo was going to end up with that person, but basically he said that this is how he wanted to do it from the beginning. So it kind of right there shoots a lot of the shippers in the foot. The people that wanted Ichigo and Rukia and said, no, he foreshadowed this and that, like, this is what apparently he wanted to do since chapter 1. He wanted Ichigo to end up with Orihime, and he wanted Rukia to end up with somebody else, and just overall a happy ending. So, minus the chapters before that, because I will not support, no matter what anyone says, that that's exactly the way he wanted to do it. But at the very least, the final chapter, he probably did have that for the most part planned out. It's just that we were missing so much context from different characters and different events that it was just kind of like, what the hell? But yeah, the final chapter, he planned it. This was all thanks to the readers. He had received 10,000s of fan letters over the years, from 3-year-old children to 78-year-old ladies. Wow. That's a huge fan base. That's like One Piece's fan base. He has read and kept every single letter. They helped him push through whenever he felt like giving up. But his health started deteriorating in the 10th year. So the 10th year, I'm assuming would have been 2011, because if I'm correct, I think Bleach first got serialized in 2001. So around 2011, which was, I'm assuming, towards the end or right around maybe the beginning, somewhere around there with the Fullbring arc, that's where his health started to deteriorate. Also, that's, where the manga started to take a nosedive as far as quality goes, and at the same time, I think the end of the Fullbring arc was rushed as well, probably reader backlash and stuff like that. So there was a multitude of things this guy was going through around 2011 when the 10-year mark of Bleach had hit. His doctor told him it was just a cold. In the past, he would get better in a day or so, but this suddenly changed. He'd be bedridden for a week. Whenever Jump magazine would have a double issue and therefore be on break the next week, he'd stay in bed the entire week to rest. But after a while, that stopped working too. Whenever he thought he was better, he'd get a cold again. No matter what he did, it was an endless cycle. He felt pathetic. He felt he was failing as a mangaka. Wow. Yo, I'm not even gonna lie. This is already making me feel bad about any type of joke I've ever said about the man. The fact that when he was getting sick, even though Kubo, it was a rarity for this man to take a break. He would have to be hospitalized. They would have to carry this man out of his office in a stretcher for him to take a break. But going through all of that, the reader backlash and everything, he was feeling like this. Essentially, he was feeling depressed. Like, he was feeling pathetic and stuff like that. He felt like a failure. That is fucked up, and I'm not gonna lie. Just the more I read this, the more I feel so bad. A mangaka is someone who delivers a manga with a set quality within a set time. So should he really continue the series? Should he stop? But the story is only halfway finished. What should he do? How should he end it? He thought about this every single day. So if in the 10th anniversary he truly felt that he was only halfway done with Bleach, that means that he did indeed have those plans to make the French arc that he talked about a lot. And also that's probably why things got rushed in the end, because again, if 2011 was the halfway mark, he was only halfway done with the story, then he was probably trying to stretch this shit into 2021, and ultimately probably Jump came in and said, nah, motherfucker, you ending this. And of course his health problems probably got to the point where it's like, I can't do this anymore. But then he got a letter. one letter. It had no name or address on it. It was from a sick boy. His medicine had stopped working and he was now hospitalized, stuck in bed. He was unable to enjoy anything because whenever he'd watch TV or play games, he'd be reminded of the times he had spent with his friends. He learned his sickness was incurable. If so, he wanted to die right away. Wow. But he was told to please live the days he had left. 18 months. The boy wrote that he had decided to immerse himself in the world of a manga as a way to enjoy his last days. He read various manga and then ended up discovering Bleach. The thought of wanting to read the next volume of Bleach was the first time since his hospitalization that he thought about tomorrow. Bleach changed his world. Bleach gave him life again. Oh my fucking god. I ain't gonna lie, like, that's crazy. No matter what you say about the story, no matter how you feel about the story, ultimately, at the very least, this changed one kid's life. A kid that was dying, that he had 18 months to live, and he read everything, but reading Bleach, getting to that next volume, is what made him continue to go. That, whoa, I ain't gonna lie, that's really fucking, it's fucking with me to hear that. The boy had asked this letter to be sent after his death. In other words, the boy had already passed on. The letter ended with the words, Kubo-sensei, I have one final request. Please draw Bleach the way you want to draw it, right until its conclusion. That's what I want to read. Wow. I got goosebumps just reading that shit. Holy fuck. Kubo has one request to the people reading this message. He asked for people to help him find out who wrote the letter. He understands this is a difficult and selfish request. However, I want to express my gratitude towards him because he is unable to read this thank you manga. And then, you know, the translator said, I know we can't help him out because we're not in Japan, but I felt the story is too beautiful not to be shared. Wow. Honestly, just reading that is fucking insane. I mean, you know, we are critical of many different series and many different authors and stuff like that, and we have many different opinions on stuff, but when you hear things like this, it kind of puts everything into perspective that at the end of the day, these stories, they're life-changing, they're ultimately made for entertainment, and they help people through tough times. And it helped this kid through tough times to continue reading Bleach, no matter what you felt about Bleach, no matter how you know, maybe despised it, you loved it, whatever the case may be. This little boy, in the 18 months that he had to live, read Bleach and ultimately appreciated it for what it was, and even wrote the fucking creator himself and said, please just write it the way you want. Like, whoo, this is, I've covered some stories, I've talked about some stuff that's happened and shit like that, but I don't know, there's something about this one that really touches me. And y'all know me, like, I like me some Bleach, but I'm not the biggest Bleach fan in the world. But to hear this, it's just, on a more personal level, I can understand it and respect it, and I just feel like, my gosh, like, you know, I think when Kubo got the letter, I'm assuming because it was a little bit confusing there, I think he got it in like 2011, and at that particular point the kid had already passed on, and he didn't know how to get in contact with him, so that's probably why he wrote, at the very least, the final chapter the way he wanted to. And I'm sure that's also the case why he wrote chapters the way he did. Maybe that's just the way he wanted to do it. Maybe he didn't care if people were gonna like it, dislike it, those 1v1s that will last sometimes like half a volume or a volume. Maybe that's just what he wanted to do. Maybe Kubo was having fun with his story and they came and rushed him because obviously people just weren't, you know, gravitating towards it. But this is the story that Kubo wanted to make, and it really sucks when I hear, you know, this story and, you know, you think back and the final arc of Bleach, the last part especially, was rushed and stuff like that. He should have been able to finish it the way he wanted to. And again, just talking about the story, it's crazy that Tite Kubo returning to Twitter is essentially our only outlet to any type of Bleach news at this particular point, because, I mean, the manga's over, anime's over, we got, what, the live action movie that we get an update from time to time, but aside from that, this is our only outlet. But this is a really special one, and I definitely have nothing but respect for Tite Kubo after reading this. He did try his best to draw his manga the way he wanted to draw it. He even wrote the last chapter, no matter what anybody said, the way he wanted to do it. Definitely props to Kubo and any mangaka that does manga the way they want to do it without worrying about other people. Yeah, sometimes it sucks, and, you know, the business comes in and fucks shit up, but I give props to Kubo, and honestly, the story really just touched me. It's fucking sad as shit, and I hope that boy really enjoyed every last fucking volume of Bleach till, you know, his life was over, because, yeah, I don't know, I gotta Yeah. But let me know what you thought about this story. How do you feel about this? Does it kind of put things into perspective for you when you read things like this and you hear things like this, that sometimes you're very critical of a series and stuff like that, but what you might be feeling a certain way, that story might be changing somebody else's life, and that's very powerful. You know, a medium such as manga, comic books, Japanese comic books is changing people's lives all over the world, and sometimes you got to keep that in mind when you're writing these letters, or, you know, you make a rant or something like that about the latest chapter. Maybe that's somebody's day. Maybe somebody's week. You never know. Hey, overall thoughts of all this. Again, much respect to Tite Kubo. I hope he keeps on posting on Twitter because this was a beautiful story. But thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you liked anything I had to say or enjoyed the video, drop me a like. I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you want more from me, make sure to subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and stalk my Facebook to get more when the video ends. I'm ForneverWorld, and as always, people, have an awesome day.